Good afternoon, Matiu. It's afternoon for me. Where are you in the world? So I know it's a little bit of a different time for you, isn't it?
Yeah, we're based out of Perth, Western Australia. So here it's an evening time, dinner time, 7 o'clock.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out from your dinner to have a conversation with me. But it's an exciting time. We're here to talk about Layer 1X, a revolutionary blockchain, it says here in my inbox. And the thing that caught my attention was that it's the world's first native interoperability, which eliminates the need for bridges, right? Bridges are the bane of blockchain's existence, in my opinion, humble opinion. But they've been a necessary evil up until now, as everybody understands that you can't just use one blockchain over another. They will do different things. How does Layer 1X achieve with interoperability? Xtalk is involved. Do you tell me more?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Joel. I really appreciate your time. Xtalk is achieved. Well, I might just kind of paint the existing landscape a little bit for the viewers. So at the moment, when you think interoperability, you probably think Cosmos or you think Polkadot in terms of interoperability between chains. Now, Cosmos themselves, they operate on a protocol called IBC. So inter-blockchain connectivity, I think what the C is, but it's basically, if you want to interoperate in the Cosmos network, you have to be on the IBC protocol. So you're limited. That's what it's compatible with, IBC. Polkadot, their interoperability is refined to their parachains. So you must be a parachain to be interoperable within that ecosystem. What we do differently, and this is what many blockchains have been trying to achieve, but you don't have to be on a certain protocol. You don't have to be a certain parachain. We have actually built a virtual machine from the ground up. And on that virtual machine, we actually have adapters that adapt to the chains that we're connecting. So, for example, Solana can stay on Solana's standard in their code, and Ethereum can stay on EVM, which is Ethereum Virtual Machine, and our adapters will adapt to the EVM and adapt to Solana to be able to transfer that across. What that means is it gives us the ability to connect to any chain. So whether it be EVM, non-EVM, public, private, hybrid, any chain possible, we can build that adapter in and then connect. Once it's connected to us, it's connected to every other chain in our network of chains.
So this, for the layperson, then they've got a bunch of Solana and they've got a bunch of, I don't know, you connect to, I think, ETH, right? How can they utilize Layer 1X in order to kind of make things a lot easier for them?
Yeah, so really what you can do is whether you've got a token or an NFT, let's say you've got an NFT, for example, on Solana. Now, at the moment, you're pretty much, if you're on a chain with an NFT, you're pretty much stuck on that chain with that NFT. It's like in a silo. But we're about to actually demonstrate this in probably about 10 days' time, is the ability to move NFTs, not just tokens. We've already demonstrated assets, so USDT, USDC, so on and so forth. But in about 10 days' time, we'll demonstrate the ability to move an NFT. So you'll be able to move that NFT from Solana, which is currently stuck on Solana, and move that over to Ethereum or any other chain we're interoperable with, and vice versa. You'll be able to move it across from any other chain into Solana, into Layer 1X, anywhere in our network of chains. So it gives that NFT, it gives it a huge amount of liquidity because it has access to all those chains, and it gives it extra utility. Imagine two projects on different chains collaborating with NFTs and now allowing those NFTs to be compatible within their projects. So now they can move amongst each other, creating extra utility for those NFTs.
It's permissionless, right? So you don't need them or any of the chains that you are interoperable with in order to kind of say, yay, we're interoperable with Layer 1X. It can just happen, right? So speak on that, because there's going to be a person who's sitting there thinking, yeah, but how does that work? What do you mean?
So it's almost like, if you can imagine, we've got a game over here, old game over here in Australia. I don't know what you call it in the UK, but we call it Chinese whispers, right? So where you pass a message from the first person all the way down to a few people down to the end of the line and hope that message is the same. So imagine we're at the moment a bridge. Let's say it's you and I trying to pass a message between each other. You're trying to pass a message to me, and in the middle of us is a bridge. What that means is that you and I both have to rely on that bridge. And let's say it's a person, right? At this point in time, you and I have to rely on that person, one, to pass the message on, and two, to pass that message on correctly so it comes through in the same form that you delivered it. At the moment, because you've got chains built with different languages, it's almost like if you spoke Italian and I spoke Chinese and you try to pass that message to me, who's going to translate it? You know, so we've got to rely on that person in the middle. So what we do, imagine that person as a bridge. We have to trust them. We take that person out. We replace them with a system which is fully transparent, coded. You can see it. It's trustless. So we don't have to trust it. We already know what the code is going to do. And imagine that it has the ability to translate any language in the world and connect any country in the world. So what we do is we build that adapter, that translator for whatever chain we want to pull into that network. We just build a translator for it. So when it comes through, that message is translated to whatever other chain or either other country in this particular scenario needs to hear it in. And that's what we do. And that's never been done before.
Well, I was leading on to my next question. So I've been following the Flare Network project pretty closely, who were claiming to want to be exactly what you're suggesting that Layer 1X is. So what's the difference between you guys and them? I mean, I know that there's an EVM that they use, right? And I can see that's the difference between the Xtalk and right. You know, what you guys are doing. So would that be it in a nutshell?
100%. So there's a few different things just with the I mean, Flare, once again, they're also not as scalable as us in terms of the amount of transactions they can process. However, the most important thing I think Flare hangs its hat on is its interoperability. However, its interoperability is just within the EVM network, meaning that if you look at the world and you can almost imagine, let's say we just take all the Asian countries and that's what it can interoperate in between, but it can't interoperate with any other countries in the world because it has to be EVM, which is Ethereum virtual machine. Ethereum built its own virtual machine. And if you hear about another EVM chain, it's because it's compatible with the EVM system. So it limits you. It does limit you because there's plenty of other non-EVMs such as Solana, Near, Hedera, the chains go on. There's just as many. Yeah. So
no need. Go on. Sorry, go for it.
No, yeah, I was just going to say what we do is we adapt. So whether you're EVM or non-EVM, we just make sure that we build that adapter in a way that we can understand what you're trying to say from that chain, because we've already got another adapter on the other end connected to a chain that will translate it for you.
So layer 2s, is there a need for a layer 2?
I think the birth of layer 2s come through the inadequacies of Ethereum in terms of its ability to process a lot of transactions and also process transactions at a cost that's affordable, right? And you and I both know we're probably both transacted on Ethereum. That can get really expensive. I think maybe it was a week ago when I think there was a meme coin, Pepe coin, that was going off, and you could pay anywhere between $15 and $100 for one transaction. The issue you've got with that is that what happens if I'm someone in a third world country or I don't have a lot of money? What it does, it limits my access to the power of blockchain. It limits my access to liquidity. It limits my access, and so these layer 2s were born to be able to be scalable and use those small transaction fees. What we do now, if you can imagine that, by connecting all these chains up, we're leveling the playing field. So if you look at Ethereum and its dominance, its network effect that it has, by us connecting all these EVMs and non-EVMs together, it now levels the playing field where each application on any of those chains can now have access to more liquidity and more users than Ethereum singly has, and without the need for bridges, because now AVAX can access not only Ethereum, but Binance, Solana, Polygon, Phantom, Arbitrum, Optimism. And as we build out, more and more chains will connect. So it really does level. It's about now, and this really gets back to one of the design principles that drives us and will continue to drive us, is that giving the user access to all chains and all applications on those chains in a cheap, fast, and safe way. We're all about the user. We start with the user first, and we build around the user. And when we look to the mass adoption of blockchain, we believe that, firstly, we believe that no one can predict exactly what the future is going to look like in 5 or 10 years. But what we believe is that it will be a multi-chain future. So one fundamental thing that we have to have for that to be effective is interoperability without risk, without these bridges that are out there.
Interesting, because I remember when I was doing my deep dive and I was very, very green, I came across a hypothesis that the future will be multi-chain. What it won't be is cross-chain. Is there a distinct difference? And I guess, is this what Layer 1x is alleviating, this idea that cross-chain, because of the bridges that they previously had to transport over, it was the reason why it wouldn't be cross-chain? It would be multi-chain, but is it Layer 1x is, I guess, it's doing away with that hypothesis, right?
Yeah, and you're spot on there, because no one thought it was achievable to actually connect EVM and non-EVM without a bridge. And we feel that there's a lot of applications on these non-EVM chains that users need access to, and they need access to it in a risk-free way. But it's not just, when we look at blockchain, obviously we understand what's in the market now, and we understand Ethereum, we understand Binance, but what about private chains? What about a health chain where you can store your health data and access that as well? And this is something that comes out of the ability to be this Xtalk that we talk about. And there's a reason why we call it Xtalk, because it's not just the transfer of assets that now you can do amongst any chain through us. We're the very first chain to be able to deliver the ability to transfer logic across chain, messages. And the power of that, where a smart contract on Arbitrum can communicate with a smart contract on Solana before any assets are deployed, makes the timing of deploying of those assets hugely capital efficient. And it also makes the user experience, which is one thing we want to achieve and will continue, much simpler. And I'll give you an example of what you can do now and what you'll be able to do, and what we're going to be demonstrating in about 10 days' time. Is someone could build a protocol on Layer 1x, and let's say you've got some USDT or USDC, you want to put it to work and you want to lend it out. So someone could build a protocol on Layer 1x where you can deposit it into that protocol, and it's built smart contracts on all the chains we're connected to that are listening to every lending protocol on those chains. So what it would do is you deposit that USDC, it'll listen for who's got the best APY for that USDC. It'll then talk, the logic will go cross-chain, come back to the protocol, and it will deploy your USDC on the best APY. Once it's deployed, it will still be listening. So as it's still listening, and let's say the APY goes up higher on another lending platform, it will then redeploy your USDC across. So now the user's capital is highly efficient without the user doing anything. It's all on chain, it's all transparent, it's all decentralized.
It's amazing. What oracle are you connecting with in order to provide that RWD?
We don't need an oracle. That's the thing. We don't need an oracle, because that consensus mechanism and the fact that we're connecting to those two chains, it's verified on the source and it's verified on the destination. It means that we're our own oracle now, which makes it highly efficient as well.
So did you just kill everyone's favorite oracle?
No. Look, we're willing to. The thing.
I'm not saying who it is. You know who it is, though, right?
Well, this is, and I'll say this now, is that we're definitely here to collaborate, right? We're here to unite and to collaborate, and if there's collaboration to be had, we're open to talk about how that can fit in, right? But ultimately, we want the user first. So if it's better for the users for us to deliver something, that's what we'll do.
You talk scalability then. Let's keep it on the user. Security, governance, talk about those areas and just how, your Layer 1x is providing the best service possible.
So something quite unique about our consensus mechanism. And the consensus mechanism is basically the mechanism that allows us to validate transactions and keep the state of the blockchain. And so it's a really important part of any sort of blockchain ecosystem. So what we deliver, there's a few different things in terms of security that we deliver, and one very unique thing in our consensus mechanism, which allows the everyday user to participate. So security first. So when the transaction comes through our is initiated in our consensus mechanism, it goes into what we call a full node. Now, once it goes past that full node and the transaction is initiated, it goes to our validators. Now, normally on a system, the nodes are these nodes are also validators. But what happens when the transaction comes through the full node and then it goes to validation, we actually use any smart device. So your mobile phone now can be a validator on our network. So we actually distribute it to those smart devices. Now, it means that we have the potential to have millions, possibly billions of validators on the network, decentralizing and securing it. So what happens when that transaction goes to the full node, it gets split up into 4 different chunks of that same transaction, 4 different parts. And then those 4 different parts go to randomly selected groups of validators. And that could be just groups of mobile phones, randomly selected from around the globe. So once again, that's that first step. It gets split into 4 pieces, and then it goes to a randomly selected groups. So that makes it hard to crack straight off the bat, because you don't know where that transaction's going to be able to try and locate it and then exploit it. But once we go into the groups, then within those groups of random validators, a random leader is selected, and that leader then goes off to another full node and then asked to validate with that full node. Now, the full node doesn't see the transaction. All it sees is what we call the encryption. And so the validator doesn't have to reveal that. Once again, adding another layer of security to the full node. When it's validated, the leader comes back to the group, and every other validator in the group goes out to a separate full node, a randomly selected full node, to validate again. And it's only if you achieve over that 51% within that particular group, then that leader sends it to the constructor, which is back to the full node to create the block. Now, if you can imagine, it's really hard to crack that if the transaction is split up into 4 pieces and then goes to all these randomly selected validators, where a randomly selected leader and all those leaders and validators go to randomly selected full nodes, and all that information is encrypted. Now, we use something called homomorphic encryption, where you don't actually have to reveal the data to update the data. So it's very, very secure when you're validating. That means you can update and you can validate without actually giving away too much of that information to the full node to be able to exploit again. So it's a very unique way that we use random selection, we use encryption, but then we also allow anyone with an L1X wallet automatically can become a validator. And not only do they validate, but also 25% of all of our transaction fees go to reward any randomly selected validator. So now you can have your mobile app on your phone, and it's only 10 bytes, so it uses up nothing, right? It's minuscule in terms of what it takes up. But it's almost like a perpetual airdrop, where if you're selected for validation, you'll just turn up in your wallet one day, oh, there's some L1X tokens. And we're rewarding the masses for participation, not just the guys that can afford to hold these full nodes.
How much you pay these devs to come up with all this mastering?
Yeah.
No, I asked that because it's been the number one thing that everybody's wanting to crack. So how long have you been working on it, man? I mean, you speak on it with a passion and an insight that suggests that you've been there from the beginning. So talk about, your involvement and just actually delivering on this, because the launch is in August for those who are listening and watching.
Yeah. So let me start from the beginning, right? And with the true genius of it all, the instigator, Kevin Coutinho, our founder. Kevin was he started being a developer when he was 8 years old. Can you imagine an 8-year-old kid developing?
Wow.
Right, when
Brilliant.
he was very young, right? In India, right? And so, not a huge amount of opportunity there when he started developing there. But what he found when he started developing, something rang a chord in him where he could actually put in a code and produce a result and have control over that result. And so that's where his passion started, and he's continued to develop. And then he found blockchain. And about 5 years ago, he started coding with blockchain and building applications. He actually built Australia's first blockchain rewards program. But through that, and he's a very unique thinker, and when it comes to problem solving, and he's always got that user first. He always kind of puts himself, and he's a big believer in decentralization, security, giving opportunity, equitable across to everybody, not just these big corporations. And so when he started building these applications on blockchain, he started coming up against these barriers. He wanted to go multi-chain, but he saw these bridges and no one had solved it at any level. These scalability issues on Ethereum and all these things. And so he just decided, well, I'm going to build my own layer one. I'm going to solve these problems. And so what happened was 2 years ago, he actually then started to write a draft white paper, and he took it to the local university here in Perth, Western Australia, which is the University of Western Australia. Now, it's one of the top 100 universities in the world, and it's part of what we call the GO8, which is the group of 8 in Australia, which is 8 of the top universities that are dedicated to really intensive research in specific industries. And so he took it to the blockchain department, which are their top tier. In fact, the senior research fellow at UWA, Dr. Bonnie Clark, she's our head of blockchain research. That's how connected we are with the University of WA. They work with each other to then form, about a year and a half ago, they finalized the V1 of the white paper. And they took their time to do that, because one of those design principles I said is put the user first, allow the user access to everywhere with cheap, fast, safer than what's possible now. And then he started building that out with that in mind. And why hasn't it been, people ask, why hasn't it been done before? How come you guys? And I think it's just because someone had to do it. It was time, right? It was time. Someone had, if we're looking to a multi-chain future, someone had to crack that code. And Kevin was the guy. And you look back at Kevin's history, the way, and just spending time with Kevin. And I joined the project halfway through last year, spending time with Kevin, the way he thinks and the way he faces problems, it just become obvious to me that, it's once he cracked that code, he started breaking other barriers, cost to participate. So for example, on Ethereum, how are you ever going to loan someone in a third world country money to start up their business or make their idea a reality? Let's say they only need $300. Might not be a lot to us, but it's a huge amount to them. Now, if they start paying you back on monthly payments, but it's going to cost you $20 for a transaction, for them, cost them $20 to pay that back for the transaction fee, or $10 or $5, it becomes financially unviable. They can't do that. But what Kevin's done with his transaction fees, he's limited that transaction fee, that gas fee on the consensus, that gas fee will never be more than 1 cent. So what it does, it now opens up all those use cases, those opportunities, those entrepreneurs, and those different places where not only can they then pay a small fee when paying it back, but now they have access to all that liquidity, not just Layer 1X, AVAX, Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism. It just opens up the world to be able to reap the benefits of blockchain.
It almost seems too good to be true. And I say that because there's been many false stools in blockchain, and I guess every new blockchain that comes along promises to be the solution to everybody's wants and needs. This genuinely seems like it's doing it and has covered all the bases. So when you've got the height of the bull run, as we're all predicting, back end of 2024, and we've moved past that Bitcoin halving, and the frenzy's back in, and interest rates are back at a favorable bloody level. What happens to Layer 1X then when everybody's using it? And I love the analogy of a blockchain being looked at as a motorway, and ETH being the biggest motorway, but it's congested, right? And there's a couple toll roads, and if you pay the right people the right money, you'll get to zoom down these toll roads and evade all of this traffic. What happens when all that traffic says, oh, Layer 1X is where we should be, and you become congested? That 1 cent that you just spoke on, does that change? And how does the flow of, and how has this been stress tested? I know it can't be, but how have you guys prepared for that?
Yeah, that's some great questions. And also, I'll kind of add to what you said. There's a lot of projects that claim a lot of things. So I always urge everyone, do your due diligence. Have a look in, look for the evidence. Make sure that these claims are, there's not just a concept, there's a proof of concept there. And that's why we've developed our test net to be able to show that we can, like we did 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, maybe we did the very first USDT transfer from Binance to Solana, EVM to non-EVM. We'll be demonstrating cross-chain NFT transactions and exchange in about 10 days time at a hackathon in India. So we want to be able to show proof of concept before we launch. And that's really important to us because the claims we're making are pretty grand, right? But to answer your question, with that transaction fee, we've put an upper bound on it. So I'll kind of maybe I'll step back a little bit and tell the viewers how it normally works, right? It's with these full nodes, what happens is in the proof of stake model, you have let's say you've got a particular node which got a lot of tokens staked on it from whatever that chain is. So let's say for Ethereum. Now, normally they get first choice on validating transactions, right? They get the first choice because they've got the most tokens there. So what happens is that if there's a lot of people on chain and you want to get your transaction processed, then it becomes an auction style. Then I'm going to up my gas fee. So now I can process my transaction. I'm going to up that gas fee so I can get processed in the next block. So what we do is we take that away because obviously then you're starting to then drive these prices up. We put an upper bound on the gas fee. So it will never be more than 1 cent, no matter how congested. We will process transactions sequentially, not in an auction, right? And the full nodes are randomly selected. So it doesn't mean just because you have all the L1X tokens staked on your full node doesn't put you front of queue, right? Once again, it's that the democratization that we're trying to achieve here with not giving anyone the upper hand, right? But if you participate, you have the opportunity to be rewarded. So when it comes to congestion, we've already in our testnet phase, we've already tested at 100,000 transactions per second. We are now scaling up, and we hope to be very close to either mainnet in August or very soon after to be at 250,000 transactions per second. And so we'll continue to build that up, which is just kind of to give everyone a picture of that. I think Ethereum does maybe 3,000, 4,000 transactions per second. If that.
Finality. Everybody likes to focus on transaction per second, but finality. Yeah. What's the?
And really good question again, Joel. I mean, you got it, man. You understand, right? Because and what Joel's getting at there is that it doesn't matter how many transactions can be processed. When does my transaction get finalized? Right? It doesn't matter. When does it actually, finalize and whatever I've requested it to do actually, be confirmed and finalized? So for us, we've got a block creation of half a second. And it means that we can achieve, even at 100,000 transactions per second, we can achieve finality in 1 to 1.5 seconds of finality. So it makes us very fast in terms of finality as well. So it means that, imagine if you want to go on Ethereum, let's say you want to go buy a coffee and the coffee costs you $5. No one wants to pay a $10 or $50 transaction fee for that $5 coffee. With us, you can pay on the gas fee level 1 cent and have that processed in 1.5 seconds. So once again, when you look at mass adoption of blockchain, these things are critical for people because people don't want to know they're using blockchain. They shouldn't even care. It should just make their life better, right? And so we're trying to make this at a subconscious level. What problems do we need to solve so it can fit seamlessly into people's lives and they can benefit from it?
It sounds brilliant. I'm excited for you guys, man. How long does it take this whole process from Kevin linking with? How long has it taken?
Yeah, we're 2 years now. 2 years, right, and so there's been some time put into this, and it's all really been about the tech for most of those times up until about the end of January when we started building out operations and marketing, and we're starting to grow that community. But people always talk about the token. What's the price of the token? And look, if we achieve what we're going to achieve, you won't have to worry about the price. The price of the token is going to be all good. But at the forefront of our mind is how do we get blockchain to benefit as many people's lives as possible. And there's areas that blockchain doesn't need to exist, but there's many areas that it does need to exist, and we can provide benefits. And one of those, just kind of give you an example, we've got a project building on us, and that's so our 3 focuses for launch are going to be DeFi, gaming, and health. And people say, why health? Health is our opportunity to showcase the diversity of how we can help people in terms of blockchain. So there's a project in us building on us called HealthLink, based out of Singapore. And it's basically trying to build an enterprise medical record where it will be able to house securely your medical data, and then be able to transfer that data between different departments. Because what happens now in a lot of countries is that, let's say you've got your records with your GP, and that GP wants to pass that record on to your specialist. And unfortunately, a lot of times they're using a fax, or they're using, they're having you fill out a form, or, when you go to the specialist, you're going to turn up 15 minutes earlier to fill out a form to make sure that all of those things, they're processes. And often they're putting your data or your data at risk in terms of what happens when someone else fills out that form or gets passed on to another department, and they miss that allergy you've got. And then now you get given some sort of medicine that you're allergic to. So what this particular protocol is solving is that once you get your health data and it's created on the blockchain, it's immutable. It cannot be changed, but it can be updated with homomorphic encryption. So for your health data, Joel, you don't actually have to reveal it to the next department for them to be able to update it. And so it keeps it secure. But what also happens, because it's immutable, which means unchangeable, then when you go to that specialist, you don't have to fill that form out. They just can grab it from the EMR, the enterprise medical record, knowing that it has been secure and it has been unchanged and immutable. And then it'll save you 15 minutes, but it'll save you the risk of them getting something wrong because someone put in something manually that's incorrect. And so now it helps reduce patient risk. It helps reduce paperwork, time, litigation, all those sort of things. And that's just one area that blockchain can benefit.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of aspirational blockchains, programs head in the health direction. For me, it's a no-brainer. There's a swathe of data there already, and it's always going to be required. So there's one project I won't mention in particular, but I'm following quite closely. I actually want to interview the leader of it next. XRP, Cardano, Bitcoin, all missing. Why is that, Matiu?
Well, and we are interested to talk to people from XRP, people from Cardano, and I urge them to get connected, because once you're in the network, put it this way, if you're not in the network, you're missing out, right? Your applications on your chain are missing out to have access to users and liquidity. So look, we're willing to collaborate. Look, ultimately, our aim is to unite blockchains, to create an ecosystem of blockchains where those applications can thrive and all users can go amongst it. But why we've chosen those 8, and 7 of them is EVM, one of them is non-EVM, which is Solana. That allows us to showcase EVM to non-EVM transfer. Why we've chosen those 8 is because those 8 hold over 80% of all TVL across all blockchain. So starting with those 8 allows us to showcase applications which can now access more liquidity than Ethereum by itself, access more users than Ethereum by itself, and levels the playing field. And we'll continue to build out. If Cardano wants to reach out, if Ripple wants to reach out, if Near, if those guys want to reach out, we're more than happy to start that conversation, because even if the head of those chains that want to reach out, their applications definitely want them to reach out, because they want access. And imagine now all non-EVM chains having access to as much liquidity as all the EVM chains do.
That was going to be my thing. It's a no-brainer. The liquidity you want that spinning, right? That's what's going to turn the billions into trillions, or the trillions into tens of trillions.
And this will blow your mind, right? Because with the ability to now transfer NFTs across anywhere, plus logic, it means that someone could actually build a marketplace on Layer 1x and let's call it the marketplace of marketplaces, where you can take that NFT, put it for sale on that marketplace, and automatically the smart contracts will then put it for sale on every other NFT mark, OpenSea, Blur.io, Magic Eden. And so it's on, so the access to all that liquidity is there. Now, what happens, let's say it gets sold on Blur.io. Once it's sold, the logic will then tell every other smart contract to burn that NFT and pass it to the user. So now the access and and utility for NFTs just escalates exponentially.
Exponentially, yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth. Speak on the launch and how that's going to be from a retail perspective.
Yeah. So look, and one thing I'll tell you as well, we're very much wanting the little guy, right? The everyday crypto enthusiast to benefit, and that's why we finished our private sale in 2 months ago, and that was 10 million we raised. Now 5 million we allocated for the everyday investor, and not just these large investors and these VCs, because we wanted that person to have access and get in at a level which was just normally restricted for VCs. So we're very much about having that normal everyday crypto investor to give them an opportunity. So what's coming up now before mainnet launches is our public sale, and we'll be announcing that very shortly in terms of when we'll be opening it up. And I can tell you now it'll be sometime in June we'll be opening it up. But I would definitely, for anyone who's interested or wanting to know more, not just about the coin, but also, understand about like what kind of impact this may have on blockchain and will have on blockchain, and then where we want to take it. I've just, join, we're at Layer1X on Twitter. We'll join our Discord, jump on our website. The website is l1x.foundation. l1x.foundation is jump on there and you'll find all our handles, but learn more about that. But look, yeah, we will be having that public sale come out. Now, the cool thing is that you'll create your own L1X wallet. Now, there's some cool stuff happening in this wallet. So because of the Xtalk, right, the ability to transfer assets cross-chain and logic, it means that within that one interface, that one wallet, you'll be able to see all your tokens from all these chains you're connected with. Any token you hold from any chain will be on that one interface. Now, here's a cool thing for the user, once again, putting the user first, is that, and you'll know this, Joel, but for the viewers out there that don't, let's say you're on Ethereum. If you want to transact on Ethereum, you've got to have Ethereum token. If you want to transact on Binance Smart Chain, you've got to have BNB token. And AVAX, you've got to have AVAX token. In that wallet, you'll have the option in that wallet that if you want to transact on Layer1X or any other chain we're connected to, you can just use L1X token. So one universal gas fee that you don't have to have all these, and swap and change all these different tokens so you can participate on these chains. One token will allow you to cover gas on every chain we're connected to, all through that wallet.
I want to meet Kevin next time we speak, Matiu.
Yeah.
I need to meet the brains behind of all this stuff here. My question I forgot, and I wrote it down while you were speaking on that. I guess previously, in my estimation, the success of a blockchain is determined by the devs building on it, right? Because more applications, the more use cases, yada, yada, yada. Not so with you guys, clearly. Interconnecting, that interoperability brings about a level of traffic that, should you hit the ground running, is going to see you busy enough. But talk about the dev side of things and building on there. You mentioned the one-stop shop NFT marketplace. I guess sky's the limit, right? With regards to potentially building on here. How is attracting devs going and just the tech they're going to need to employ, the language they need to learn, yada, 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 all that stuff?
Yeah, no, really good question. And you're absolutely right. In terms of the activity, I mean, we do have a unique position where we've got two avenues of activity. One's the interoperability and one's natively on our chain. And so we're having our very first hackathon in India, which will be happening in about 10 days' time, on the 27th, I believe it is, of May. Don't hold me to that. It's either a day or so either side. I just got back from a long trip, so my head's not quite there, but it's coming up soon. But one of the key things that we'll do is we'll then demonstrate there, but we'll be releasing our developer notes where it will be very, very simple for any dev to understand how to build on us, how to take advantage of the Xtalk, how to, to employ multiple, and it's very modular as well. So, they can take this piece and that piece and put it together we'll also be incentivizing them as well to, if they want to create a really cool dApp that's usable on the network, we'll have, if you can imagine, our own dApp store where devs can actually participate, can add value and add those dApps on there and be paid a royalty if someone wants to use it. And that's really important to incentivize devs to build in simplicity for building, because I think there's, and you might be one of these guys, right? There's so many people out there with some great ideas that they think that they would love to put on the blockchain and have impact people's lives, but they don't have that developer skill. That's, I think, one of the biggest barriers to bringing these ideas to fruition is the fact that there's the complexity of actually building it. So ultimately where we're heading is we want to get it to a place, and there is a project that's building with us called BX Finance, which is going to become a no-code solution where you can grab this module and that module and start to put together your own applications, even if you have no understanding of developing, right? And that's really key, because once we can achieve that, then all the ideas that can now be brought to life on blockchain. So that's where we're heading for sure.
Matiu, I did start off by apologizing for taking you away from your dinner, but I'm glad I did, to be honest with you. So, and I'm conscious that I've taken you away for a good hour. So thank you for your time, really, to explain Layer 1X. I don't want to go too further than where we are right now, other than to ask, Elon Musk, he tweeted X the other day. Nothing to do with you guys, is it?
I can neither confirm or deny.
I had a feeling you'd say that. I would have done the same thing. Don't worry. It makes sense from your perspective. Well, on that note, my friend, it's been a pleasure. Is there anything else you want to share with us that we ain't covered? I think we've covered everything, but that we ain't covered.
Yeah, look, I have, once again, if people want to learn more, we've got, jump on l1x.foundation. You'll find our Twitter, you'll find our Discord. But look, I was back at you there, Joel. It's always nice to be able to talk about Layer 1X with someone as passionate as you, and maybe your viewers don't realize, but those questions you're asking, they're key due diligence questions, right? You got to dive deep into these questions and look for evidence, and that's what I'd say to the viewers as well. Get that evidence from what we're saying. Where's the proof? When we bring out that test and have a play on it, when we show these demonstrations, look at them and have a listen. So kudos to you about your passion, but also coming from that viewer's perspective and asking those questions, because those are the important questions they need to know. So it's always a pleasure talking to someone like yourself, Joel. Thank you.